Hello there. I'm glad you've joined me. Go ahead and get comfortable. Pull a blanket around your shoulders. Take a deep breath and let your mind travel somewhere far from the world you know. We're heading back in time, far north, 1,000 years ago, to the edge of a frozen fjord where survival isn't a story. It's your every breath. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoy these long, quiet journeys through forgotten corners of history, feel free to subscribe. I release videos just like this all the time, slow, immersive, and rich with the kind of details that help you feel like you're truly there. Now, step outside of your world, because yours is gone, and your new one is nothing but cold and silence. You wake in darkness. Not peaceful darkness, not the cozy kind that lingers when a fire's just gone out. No, this is the kind of darkness that seeps into your lungs, fills your nose with smoke, and presses down on your chest like winter never left. The air is thick and heavy inside the turf-roofed longhouse, and the stone hearth at the center has burned down to embers. The warmth is gone, the cold has crept in, and you feel it in your teeth. Your body is stiff, knotted up like old rope. The straw bedding beneath you has flattened over the months, and you can feel the bare earth beneath it, pressing into your spine. You'd like to stay lying down. You'd like another hour of rest, but you don't get that luxury. Not here, not in this life. You're a farmer now, not a warrior, not a raider, and the land doesn't wait. The first breath you take stings your throat. Smoke from last night's fire still floats in the low air. Your tunic, heavy with sleep sweat and ash, clings to your skin. You pull it tighter and sit up slowly. Across the single room, your wife and children are still curled together under a shared wool blanket. The youngest coughs, a sound you've heard far too often lately. A wet, rattling little gasp that tells you the sickness is still here, and winter is far from over. You dress quickly. A worn wool tunic, stitched again and again where the elbows have thinned. A belt of cracked leather, with a bone-handled knife always at your hip. Not a weapon for war, but a tool for daily survival. Slicing rope, splitting fish, cutting wood. You pull on your boots last, stiff with cold and mud-caked at the heels, and wince as your heels touch the frozen floor. There's no fireplace to stand beside, no warm stone bath. Just the fire, if it wakes, and your own body heat. You prod the hearth gently, with a stick. A few orange flecks flare up. You feed it bark, straw, a whisper of kindling. It's reluctant, just like you, but it burns, and that's enough. Then you duck your head and push open the creaking door to the outside world. The cold slaps your face instantly. Not like the breeze of a winter morning. This is a living thing. It rushes down from the mountains, rips across the open valley, and bites deep. Your breath becomes a cloud in front of you. Your nose runs. Your ears sting. The fjord stretches out in front of you. A flat plate of frozen sea, white with frost and rimmed by jagged cliffs. The sky above is pale, sunless, washed with the color of iron. This is Norway. Or what it was, long before anyone called it that. A hard place, made for hard people, and you are not made of steel. You are made of skin, blood, and aching joints. But you stand anyway, because the animals are waiting. The goat bleats behind the wooden fence. She's cold too, shaking beneath her patchy coat, looking at you with wide, uncertain eyes. She hasn't given milk in days. You throw her a handful of old hay. She sniffs it, then eats like she has no other choice. The cow is worse. Her breath steams in thick clouds. She's too thin. The neighbor down the hill lost 2 last week to frostbite and hunger. You run a hand along her ribs. Too sharp. You don't know if she'd make it to spring. You check the barn next. The door sticks in the frost. Inside, a chicken lies dead in the straw, frozen stiff, wings splayed like it died mid-flight. You swear quietly and toss it outside for the crows. One less meal for the family. One more quiet loss no one will mention. The sun, if you can call it that, finally begins to rise. Barely more than a glow behind the clouds. Just enough to cast long, weak shadows across the snow. You walk down to the water's edge, a bucket in hand, and break through the ice with the butt of your knife. The water is dark, still, and so cold, your hands go numb within seconds. You fill the bucket anyway. The fire needs water. The porridge needs water. You need water. You return to the house and duck back inside. It's still smoky, still bitterly cold. But there's life in the coals now, and your wife has started to stir. She nods to you, eyes half closed, and starts preparing the morning meal, dried fish boiled in barley. It smells like salt and desperation. Your children rise slowly, quiet and pale. The oldest boy, barely 10, helps sweep out the corner where the goat sometimes sleeps. The others begin their chores without being told. They know better. This is not a place where childhood stretches wide. Here, children become workers before they lose their baby teeth. And you? You sit by the fire, hands still shaking from the water, and listen to the wind rattling the thatch above you. You close your eyes just for a second and try to remember warmth, real warmth. A summer that didn't feel like it was borrowed. A meal that ended with a full stomach. A time when the world didn't lean on your shoulders like a sack of wet stone. But it's gone. There is only this, the fjord, the cold, the work. And tomorrow, it all begins again. You didn't choose this life. It was already waiting for you the moment you took your first breath. Even then, the smoke in your lungs and the cold against your skin were part of your inheritance. You were born into a place where the soil is shallow and the sky never seems to forgive, where the winters are long and cruel and the summers come too late and leave too early. This land doesn't care for your hopes. It only demands your labor. Your father taught you that long before you were old enough to question it. He worked this same soil with the same hands you now see when you look down at your own. Thick-fingered, scarred, blistered. He bled into this earth just like his father before him. You remember the sound of his boots pulling free of the mud every morning, the slow, rhythmic schlup-schlup as he trudged out to the barley field, long before dawn had touched the sky. You followed in those same tracks, first as a boy too young to swing an axe, later as the one who held the axe when your father couldn't anymore. Now he's part of the field. You buried him beneath a pile of stones by the boundary marker, where the barley grows thin and the frost comes early. There was no feast, no priest, just you, your brother, and your mother, standing in silence with numb fingers and heavier hearts. That's how most go in these parts, into the soil, wrapped in the same rough cloth they wore in life, remembered only by those who share their blood. The mud here remembers everyone. It swallows your boots with each step and refuses to give them back. It climbs your ankles, seeps into your skin, blackens your nails, and clings to the soles of your thoughts. It's not just earth, it's your past. Every furrow you dig cuts through memories you didn't ask for. A stone your father once lifted, a fence post he carved, the patch of soil where your brother broke his leg falling from the plow. The land keeps all of it. You don't get to start fresh here. You're bound to this place, not by law or chain, but by something deeper. The way frost binds to timber. The way hunger binds to memory. The way your name is bound to the valley and the valley to your name. You could leave, maybe, go south toward the cities or east to find work on a ship. But you won't, because even though this land is harsh and unforgiving, it's also the only place that knows your story. Your days begin with mud and end with it. You wake in a house dug partially into the hill, where the walls sweat from the breath of too many bodies and not enough fire. You open the door and step into the sludge of thawed snow and old manure. You grab the hoe or the rake or the shovel, it doesn't matter which, and head out. There's always something to dig, a trench to deepen, a root to cut, a pit to drain. You know the exact texture of wet earth when the spring floods retreat, and the smell of mold under stones that haven't been moved in years. In summer, the mud dries to dust, but it doesn't become kinder, just sharper. You breathe it in. It cakes your lips and scratches your eyes. It finds its way into your food, your clothes, your skin. When you lie down at night, you feel it in your bed, as if the land has followed you inside, refusing to let you rest. The frost, when it returns, is less like a season and more like a presence. It creeps back into the valley like an old enemy who knows your weaknesses. You feel it in your fingertips before you see it on the grass. It starts early, sometimes while the leaves are still green, and it doesn't ask permission. One morning, you wake up to find your seedlings blackened, gone. Weeks of planting, wasted in a single night. You curse under your breath. Not at the gods, they're too far away, but at the sky itself. You've seen what frost does to people. It steals parts of them. First their hope, then their health. Your neighbor lost 2 toes last year. He limps now, even in summer. A girl you once knew. She lived up near the ridge, froze to death walking home from the woods. They found her with her hands tucked inside her tunic, as if holding on to the last of her own warmth. No one forgets those things. The irony is that you don't even hate this life. Not exactly. You hate the hunger, the back pain, the way the cold creeps into your joints and never leaves. But the rhythm of it, the knowing, that part settles into your bones like something true. You understand the land, even when it fights you. You can read the clouds, feel the shift in the wind, tell the hour by the way the shadows move across your field. In a strange way, that's its own kind of power. There's comfort in routine, even one built on suffering. You know how to stack wood for a long winter. You know how to salt fish so it lasts through lean months. You know how to tan leather until it's supple, how to mend boots, how to find the driest moss to light the first spark of a fire in a snowstorm. These things won't earn you praise, but they will keep you alive. You were born into this, and so were your children. You watch them as they learn to lift buckets, to carry firewood, to sweep ash from the hearth. You try not to be too hard on them, but softness is dangerous. It leaves cracks, and cracks invite the cold. There's a quiet pride in how you've endured. Not the kind anyone sings about, but the kind that sits heavy in your chest when you look at what you've built with your own hands. Even if it leaks, even if it breaks, the fence line you carved from pine, the well you dug with your brother until your palms bled, the smokehouse that still stands, patched with clay and prayer. You think sometimes of what lies beyond the fjord, lands with warmer soil, longer days, softer winters. But those stories are always told by people who've never spent a season gutting fish, with numb fingers, or pulling a calf from a dying cow. Stories like that don't account for what it means to leave your father's grave behind, or your mother's loom, or the place where your child took his first steps. And so you stay, bound by frost, buried in mud, but alive, fully, stubbornly alive. The land doesn't yield. It resists. Every foot of earth you till feels like a battle, and the ground fights you like it remembers every winter before this one. You dig not into soil, but into a graveyard of stone and frost, where the earth is laced with roots too stubborn to pull and rocks too sharp to ignore. This is not farmland, not really. It's something older and harder, a place carved by glaciers and seasoned by storm. But it's what you have, and so you wake each morning, grip your iron hoe, and set to work on land that was never meant to be kind. You know every patch of it by heart. Where the barley might grow if the frost stays back another week. Where the cabbage could settle if you can keep the goats out. Where the drainage dips too low and the water pools after rain, drowning whatever dares to sprout. You've tried clearing new space, burning shrubs, pulling roots, dragging stones. But even then, the progress is slow. Your tools break before the sun reaches its peak, their wooden shafts splitting from tension, their iron teeth worn down against centuries of buried stone. Each day begins with a test. You prod the earth, check the temperature, study the sky. You kneel in the dirt and scratch at it with your fingers, trying to tell if it's ready. It rarely is. If it's too early in spring, the frost lies just beneath the surface, invisible but waiting. One warm day can fool you, but the cold doesn't leave. It just sleeps, curled under the soil like a snake, ready to rise when the sun dips behind a cloud. Still you sow, because you must. Barley is your main crop. It's stubborn like you. It can handle the cold, survive the wind, endure the short days. You plant it in tight rows, whispering half-formed prayers as you press the seed into the frozen ground. Not because you believe the gods will intervene, but because speaking something aloud makes it feel real. You do the same for the cabbage, the occasional turnip, the patch of leeks you keep close to the house for soups. Nothing grows in abundance, and everything grows too slowly. But it's enough, if you're lucky, to stretch into winter. The barley has a rhythm, and so do you. You walk the rows, pulling weeds with frozen fingers. You patch the broken fence. You fight off birds with rags tied to sticks. You sleep light so you can chase off the fox that comes by night. When the wind changes, you watch the skies for hail, your heart tightening as you remember last year's storm that stripped your field bare in a single hour. Sometimes the barley bends under early frost, and you kneel beside it, cradling each fragile stalk like a child. You breathe on them, your warm breath rising in clouds. It feels foolish, but you do it anyway. You know what hunger feels like. You've seen what happens when there isn't enough to grind into flour, when even the scraps are gone, when the fish stop biting and the goats run dry. A bad harvest is more than a disappointment. It's a sentence. The tools you use are simple, heavy, unforgiving. The iron comes from a smelter 3 valleys over, carried on your back or dragged behind a sled. You repair your own handles, bind cracked wood with twine and pitch, patch holes with bits of leather. You can't afford new ones. The blade on your scythe is notched. The rake you use has a tooth missing. The spade was your father's, and his father's before that. You keep using them because you have no choice, and because they still work, if only just. The work doesn't change, but your body does. Your back tightens. Your fingers grow stiff. The cold creeps deeper each year. You walk slower than you used to. You feel it in your knees when the rain starts, in your shoulders when you swing the axe. You can't remember when you last had a day without pain. Sometimes, when the light hits the fjord just right and the clouds break apart like torn cloth, you pause and look around. For a moment, it's beautiful. The golden field, the dark green of the pines, the glint of snow on the distant hills. You breathe deeply just once before returning to your task, because beauty won't put bread on the table, and the frost is coming, always coming. The soil is thin. It runs out quickly. What nutrients the roots don't take, the rain washes away. You dig in compost, bury old fish bones, scatter ashes, anything to feed the land. It's not enough. It never is. Some years, the barley grows too short to harvest. You cut what you can, dry the stalks on wooden frames, thresh them by hand with flails that bruise your wrists. Each grain matters. Each one is a fight one. There are no machines to help you. No beast of burden strong enough to pull through this terrain. Just you and your family, and the wind. The children help, of course. They're old enough now to carry baskets, to turn the earth, to sort the stones. You wish you could give them easier lives. But wishing is for stories, not for farmers. You remember the year the ice came back in August. The crops were nearly ready. You dared to feel proud. Then the cold snapped overnight. You woke to a field glittering with frost, beautiful, like death. You walked through it, your breath caught in your throat, your feet crunching over the ruined harvest. That winter, you boiled leather and ate moss scraped from the stones. You still dream of that frost. When the harvest does come, it's not a celebration. It's a relief. You cut and gather, tie the sheaves, hang them to dry. You turn the millstone, slowly, for hours. You bag the flour in rough linen sacks, counting every handful. It's never enough, but it's something. You store it high, out of reach of mice, sealed with wax and prayer. Then comes the wait. The field sleeps beneath snow. The tools hang silent in the barn, and you, like the land, grow still, but not peaceful. Never peaceful, because even in rest, you know what's coming next. Another spring, another season of digging through stone and ice, and another silent question, asked each morning as you step into the cold. Will this year be the one that breaks you? So far, the answer is no, but you know better than to trust tomorrow. You feed them before you feed yourself. That's just the way it is. You wake half frozen and hungry, and before your own lips touch a bowl, or your body sees warmth, you check on them. The goat, the cow, the chickens, the sheep if you're lucky enough to still have one. They are not just animals. They are the fragile thread that ties you to survival, and every breath they take is worth more than a dozen of your own. Because if they fail, so do you. There's no nobility in it, just necessity. You've learned not to name them. That's a mistake made by the young. When you name them, you let them into a corner of your heart, and that's dangerous. Because animals don't last long here. The cold gets them, or the sickness, or a fox, or sometimes nothing at all. You walk out one morning and find one stiff in the hay, eyes dull, like it just gave up. You curse quietly, kneel down, and press your forehead to its still warm flank, and then you begin the work of loss. You don't have many. Most don't. A cow, maybe two if the family's big enough. A handful of goats. A pen of chickens with missing feathers. They're not fat. They're not strong. They're just enough. Enough to make milk, to lay eggs, to give meat when the need outweighs sentiment. But even that balance is delicate. When winter stretches too long, or a summer storm floods the barn, the line between having enough and having nothing, it's too thin to see. The goats are scrappy, at least. They'll eat almost anything. Moss, bark, even the edges of your tunic when you get too close. You watch them leap onto rocks, stubborn and fearless. You've seen one fall, break a leg, and you had to put it down with your own hands. That night, you didn't eat. You couldn't. The meat was there. But your stomach turned every time you looked at the bones. The cow is different. She is the heart of the farm. Her milk feeds the family, fills the pot, turns into butter on rare good days. You speak softly to her, even when no one else is listening. You run your hands along her flanks in the early morning light and whisper apologies when you pull too hard or the barn is too cold. She's old now. You can see it in the way her knees move when she walks. You dread the day her breath comes slow, her eyes dim. Because when she dies, it won't just be her. It'll be the porridge you can't make, the hunger that sharpens faster, the thin frost creeping under the door in ways you can't fight without strength. And yet they die. Often. Too often. You've buried more than you can count. Some you found lying under snow, half covered, like the earth was trying to take them back. Others you watched die, slowly, over days, with nothing to do but keep a hand on their side, feel the warmth leave, and carry the weight of helplessness. You've tried everything, poultices of ash and fat, chants passed down from your grandmother, herbal pastes that stink of rot but promise miracles. Most of the time, it doesn't matter. When death wants one of them, it takes them. Then there's the theft. You don't like to talk about it. You try to believe your neighbors are good, honest folk. But when the snow is deep and the barns are quiet, desperation can twist a man into something else. You've had hens disappear without a trace. A kid goat once, the smallest one, barely old enough to stand, gone overnight. You searched the whole ridge for tracks. Nothing. Just a broken fence post and a sick feeling in your stomach. You didn't ask questions, because you wouldn't like the answers. And if someone came asking about your own hands one day, you wouldn't want to lie. Sometimes it's nature that takes them. A sudden storm rolls in, loud, fast, brutal, and you can't reach the pen in time. You hear them bleat, panic in their voices, and by the time you reach them, it's too late. Lightning strikes a tree. Wind tears the roof clean off the barn. You find a chicken crushed beneath a fallen beam, its neck twisted in a way that haunts you for days. The storm passes. The damage stays. You try to rebuild. You always do. But you're patching the same holes with less each time. Rope thinned from years of pulling. Boards soft with rot. Nails bent and reused. Nothing ever lasts as long as you need it to. You do the math in your head, and it never adds up. Feed is low. Hay is moldy. Winter is early. You look at the animals and wonder which will make it, which won't, which you might have to butcher before their time, just to make it through. And when you do slaughter one, it isn't a clean thing. The knife in your hand feels heavier than it should. Your fingers tremble, not from cold, but from the weight of what comes next. Blood soaks into the straw. Steam rises from the fresh flesh. You feel it in your chest, not guilt, exactly, but something close. A quiet grief that never gets a name. You salt the meat, hang it, smoke it. You do everything right. But that first bite always comes with silence. No one speaks. No one thanks the gods. You just eat, slow and heavy, chewing through loss. The animals aren't just food. They're your heat, your trade, your life. You barter goat cheese for salt, eggs for wool. Without them, you have nothing to offer. The blacksmith won't sharpen your scythe for free. The merchant won't give you flour for good intentions. Everything is tied to them, and they are always at risk. You've seen what happens to a family that loses too many. They try to hide it at first, patch the barn roof, smile tighter. Then they stop coming to market. The chimney stops smoking. The children look thinner, quieter. Then one day, you hear someone found them, all of them, curled together like they thought body heat could save them. It couldn't. So you protect yours like treasure. You check on them twice a night during winter. You lay your own cloak over the goat if it's shivering. You clean their hooves, scrape their troughs, whisper when you pass their stalls. You give them water even when your own throat is dry, because you know they are everything. Your warmth, your income, your meals, your future. And when they die, not if, but when, they don't just take meat or milk. They take months of effort. They take dreams of trade. They take security, thin and brittle as it was. You bury them behind the shed, mark the spot with a stone, and return to the house without a word. Your children learn early what that silence means. You wake coughing again. Your lungs burn, your throat is raw, and the inside of your nose is black from the soot. You roll over, but there's nowhere to go. Someone's feet are in your ribs, and you're pressed against a wall of packed earth still cold from the night. The mat beneath you is rough straw, flattened in some places, poking through in others. You shift slowly, careful not to wake the children. Though one of them stirs and mumbles in their sleep, burying their face deeper into the wool blanket you all share. The smoke keeps them damp, the cold never leaves, and the smell never fades. It groans when it opens, lets in gusts of wind, and slams shut if you don't latch it fast enough. Sometimes you wonder if it's worth keeping it at all. The wind finds a way in regardless, but it's what you have. And in the night, when wolves howl in the hills or strangers pass along the ridge, it's the only thing between your family and whatever waits outside. You built it with your own hands, dug the trench, laid the stones, stacked the timber, packed the gaps with turf and mud. It keeps you from seeing just how little you truly have. In the daylight, everything is harsher. The worn shoes, the frayed tunics, the emptiness of the grain jars. But at night, in the soft flicker of firelight and the haze of smoke, you can almost pretend it's enough. The smoke rises again. The house fills with it again. You cough again. And then you wake the others, because the day has begun, and there is work to do. You patched the leaks after the spring rains, shored up the roof before the winter winds came howling down the fjord. You've watched your children take their first steps on this dirt floor, seen your wife give birth in the corner by the hearth, seen blood soak into the straw and disappear as though the house itself drank it. Not palaces, not temples, just a house with 2 rooms, a chimney, a wooden floor, maybe a proper bed, a place where your children can sleep without coughing, where your food doesn't taste like ash, where you can stand upright without your eyes watering. It seems small, this dream, but it feels as far away as Asgard. You veil a father in the field out back and come inside to sit by this same fire, silent and unblinking, while the world went on. You can remember the last time you didn't reek of ash and earth and sweat. Even your bedclothes, the furs and woven wool, smell more like fire than fabric. You know where to step, how to balance the pot over the fire, how to roll yourself, just so to avoid the worst of the drafts. You know how to keep the coals burning through the night by piling dung and peat just so. You know which corner leaks when it rains, which beam groans when the wind picks up. This house may not be kind, but it is known. And in a world where everything else feels unpredictable, that's something. The children's coughs never go away. Dry hacks that echo through the night like cracked wood snapping in a fire. Your youngest wheezes in his sleep, a soft rasping sound that makes you sit upright sometimes, heart pounding, checking to make sure he's still breathing. You've known neighbors who lost their babies in the smoke. They just stopped breathing, quietly, sometime between dusk and dawn. The fire that keeps you alive also takes its toll, slow, invisible, constant. But you've grown used to it. You don't notice it anymore. Not until someone dies and the smell of the body mixes with the rest. Then it becomes something else, something unbearable. It's warm, but only barely. The kind of warmth that leaves your fingers stiff and your bones aching. The air is thick. Just a narrow slit near the roof that lets in a shaft of gray light during the day. Too little to see by, but enough to know the sun has risen. You do most things in near darkness. Cooking, mending, tending wounds, birthing children. It all happens here, in the smoke and the shadow. You know the layout of this house, not by sight, but by memory. You can find the water jug with your eyes closed. You can walk to the door without stumbling, even at night. This place is in your bones, not just with cold, but with smoke, always smoke. It presses in from all sides, through the turf roof, the timber walls, the dirt floor. You light the fire with care, feeding it what little dry wood you have. Most mornings, it's damp. The logs smolder more than they burn, coughing smoke into the room like the gods themselves are wheezing. But you need it. To cook, to dry, to live. The warmth is patchy at best, strongest in a tight circle just around the hearth. You arrange yourselves around it. Parents, children, maybe a grandparent, like spokes of a wheel, heads toward the pit, feet pointed outward. It's the only way to survive the night. There's no chimney in your home, no flue to pull the smoke skyward and away. Just one. No divisions, no privacy. Everything you own is visible, and everything you are is shared. Your tools hang from pegs near the entrance, the axe, the hoe, the pitchfork, a fishing net folded and tied with cord. Clay pots sit stacked in one corner, some empty, some filled with dried herbs or bits of barley. The wooden table, if it can be called that, leans to one side, its legs uneven from rot. Beneath it, a low bench where your eldest child sometimes sleeps when the floor grows too cold. The fire burns low in the hearth pit at the center of the room, surrounded by blackened stone and the crusted edges of last night's stew. Smoke rises lazily, curling into the rafters where soot clings like cobwebs. It doesn't escape. It lingers. It drifts back down. It sinks into your hair, your clothes, your skin. The walls are dark from it, the beams stained a permanent gray, the ceiling so coated with grime you could scrape it off with a knife. And yet, without that fire, you'd die. The cold is merciless here. The house is one room. Clothes hang near the rafters to dry. Not that they're ever truly dry. The door is just a slab of rough-hewn wood set into a crooked frame, sealed at the edges with moss. There's no window. The smoke gets into everything. It stings your eyes, blurs your vision, makes your head throb. And yet, this house is everything. The darkness becomes a kind of companion. It hides the cracks. It blurs the hunger in your children's faces. There is no comfort here, but there is routine. And sometimes, routine feels like safety. Still, you dream of something better. So you get up, rub the soot from your arms, and throw another log on the fire. You work the land, but it is never truly yours. From the moment you first set foot on this rugged patch of earth, it has belonged to another, the Jarl. His name is spoken with a mixture of fear and resignation, a shadow that stretches across your life longer and darker than the longest winter night. But it never is. The Jarl's men count the sheaves and the skins with cold, sharp eyes. They mark the sheep that must be handed over, the hours of labor owed for repairs on the longhouse and the defense palisade. You owe the Jarl your strength, your sweat, and your very life. Each season you spend repairing his longhouse's roof, hauling stone for the walls, standing watch when the snows come early. Some find ways to eke out a little more for themselves, slipping extra eggs or meat into secret stashes. Others give up, their eyes hollow with exhaustion, their backs bent beneath invisible burdens. But the years pass, and the debt grows like the frost beneath the soil. You owe more than grain. You owe your strength, your time, your soul. The land you call home is borrowed. The life you live is borrowed. And the Jarl holds the keys to both. You can feel the tension, the quiet desperation that seeps into every conversation, every glance. And you prepare for the day the Jarl's men will come again to take what is theirs and remind you of your place in this frozen world. It's a silent agreement. Survive, but don't get noticed. Keep your head low, your hands busy, your voice soft. You learn quickly. Resistance is futile, and rebellion is a death sentence. The Jarl's men are everywhere, in the fields, in the village square, in the homes of your neighbors. Their eyes miss nothing. Their spears threaten any sign of defiance. If you falter, if you question, the penalties are swift and severe. Fines that eat into your already meager stores. Confiscation of tools. You give because your family's survival depends on it. There are no contracts, no legal papers, just customs passed down by your ancestors and enforced by the crack of a whip or the edge of a blade. His halls are warm and filled with mead, while your own home is cold and sparse. He wears furs and jewels, while you patch your tunics with scraps of cloth. His word is law, his power unquestioned, and yet he is no different in flesh and bone. You know this. You've seen him sweat under his helmet, seen him bleed in battle. But the gap between your lives feels insurmountable, like the difference between the summer sun and the endless winter. The Jarl's power is absolute, as real and brutal as the frost that claims your crops or the wolves that haunt the forests. To deny him is to deny your own place in the world, and to deny your family's chance at life. Or worse, exile, cast out into the wild, left to fend for yourself in a land that offers no mercy to the lone wanderer. You owe him, not just because of the land, but because of the very air you breathe here. Every seed you plant, every animal you raise, every harvest you bring in must be shared, for nothing belongs to you alone. The Jarl's demands come like the seasons, steady, unrelenting, and inescapable. When the spring thaw melts the last of the snow, you prepare for his tribute. Grain, wool, livestock, labor, all claimed with an authority that brooks no argument. You pack up sacks of barley, the hard-earned yield of months, and set out with your family's best goat tethered behind you. The journey to the longhouse where the Jarl lives is arduous, but necessary. His hall towers above the village like a fortress, and within its walls you are reminded of your place. A tenant, a servant, a cog in a wheel far beyond your control. Every year, you wonder if this will be the time you can keep a little more for yourself and your kin. Sometimes the Jarl's demands grow heavier without warning. A new war to fund, a feast to prepare, or a debt to pay to another clan. You hear whispers of raids and battles beyond the fjord, of blood spilled and swords drawn. You don't know the details, but you know the consequences. More grain, more sheep, more days away from your own home, more risk. You grumble in the fields, chest tight with anger, but there is no one to hear you, no one to save you. You swallow the bitterness like the cold wind that cuts across your face. The share you give isn't just about goods. It's about loyalty, a constant reminder that you serve another. And yet, you give. You give because you have no choice. You watch the other farmers, some older, some younger, each weighed down by their own debts and obligations. The Jarl doesn't live like you. He feasts while you hunger. Every season, you pray for a break, a good harvest, a change in leadership, a time when the Jarl's hand is lighter. So you rise with the dawn, you tend your crops and your animals, you patch your fences and your roofs, you barter what you can. You awake to the harsh grip of January, when the cold has settled deep in your bones and refuses to loosen its hold. The air inside your home is thin and biting, the flickering fire barely enough to chase back the frost that creeps across the floorboards. Outside, the world is buried beneath a blanket of ice and snow, so thick it muffles even the sharpest of cries. The trees stand bare, their skeletal branches scraping the steel-gray sky, while the fjord lies frozen, silent, and unforgiving. This is the season that tests everything you have, your strength, your will, and most of all, your hope. It steals outside and sneaks in through every crack, every poorly sealed door. It freezes your breath in the air, coats the inside of your nose with ice, and leaves your fingers numb and useless. You wrap your cloak tighter, huddle near the hearth, and try to will the winter away. But you know better. Winter is patient. It tests your spirit. You carry the hope that spring will come, that the earth will thaw, and that life will return to the barren fields. You remember that beyond this long, dark season, the sun waits, and with it, the chance to live again. The long nights bring with them shadows, fears of what tomorrow might bring, memories of lost kin, the creeping despair that maybe, just maybe, this year will be your last. You clutch your family close, telling stories by the fire to keep the cold at bay, singing ancient songs passed down through generations. These small acts become lifelines, threads of warmth in a world that feels unbearably cold. It waits for you to falter. The root cellar, once a modest treasure trove of turnips, carrots, and salted meat, is now empty, now silent beneath a thin blanket. The village dog who wandered off into the woods never to return. The quiet infant who stopped crying weeks ago. The losses are quiet, almost invisible, but they weigh heavy on your heart. Each absence a hollow space at the table, a missing voice in the long night. The last of the stored food has been consumed, rationed out sparingly through the long weeks of winter. You remember meals shared around the fire, thick porridge sweetened with honey, roasted venison fresh from the hunt, warm bread baked in the communal oven. Those days seem like a lifetime ago, a fleeting glimpse of comfort now drowned by the howling winds outside. The taste of food lingers on your tongue, a cruel reminder of what you've lost. What was once the promise of survival has become a cruel reminder of scarcity. You must repair the roof before the next storm, chop wood for the dwindling fire, tend to the animals too weak to stand. Doors remain shut, smoke trails are faint, and footsteps are rare on the frozen paths. But beneath the quiet, there is a shared understanding. Everyone is fighting the same battle, waiting for the thaw. You see it in the tired eyes of your neighbors, the thin smiles exchanged across the market square, the hushed prayers whispered in the dark. Each task feels heavier than the last, your body aching with exhaustion and malnourishment. You drag yourself from one chore to the next, driven not by strength, but by sheer will. To stop is to surrender. Your children lie curled beside you, their faces pale and cheeks sunken from lack of nourishment. Their coughs echo in the stillness, wet and hacking, the kind that no fire or stew can fix. You press your hand to their forehead, hoping for a flicker of heat, a sign that they might still fight this slow death. But even hope feels distant. You gnaw on dry, brittle bark stripped from the few trees still standing, flavorless and tough, filling your stomach with little but emptiness. The old bread, soaked in snowmelt to soften its hardness, is your only other sustenance, but even that is disappearing fast. Every crumb tastes like defeat. Hunger is a slow, creeping thing. It doesn't strike suddenly like a wolf bite. Instead, it gnaws at you day after day, hollowing out your belly and dulling your senses. Your hands shake when you rise, your legs are weak beneath you, and the fire's warmth never quite reaches your skin. You find yourself dreaming less of food and more of warmth, a soft bed, a life where the cold doesn't steal your breath each morning. You look around your small home, the single room cluttered with straw mats, cracked clay pots, and the few meager possessions you cling to. The cold is relentless. You start counting the ones who don't wake up anymore, the elderly neighbor who used to greet you with a smile. Food is no longer just about survival. It is about memory. Your work doesn't stop for hunger or cold. The village feels empty this time of year. Winter tests more than your body. And still, you survive. Day by day, breath by breath, you endure the slow starvation, the biting frost, and the silence of the frozen land. You watch from the rocky shore as the long ships cut through the misty fjord, their dragon-headed prows slicing the gray water with the promise of glory and gold. The oars dip and rise in steady rhythm, men's voices raised in battle chants that echo off the cliffs. You feel the pull of those ships deep inside you, the call of adventure, the lure of silver, the chance to carve your name into the sagas told by firelight. But as the waves carry them away, you know this isn't your path. Raiding isn't for you. Not now. Maybe not ever. They are richer, bolder, their voices louder. You worry for your family's safety while the men are away raiding, knowing that threats come not only from foreign shores, but from rival clans and roaming bandits. The raiders bring back gold, yes, but they also bring danger and the wrath of enemies. But you hear, too, of the ones who never came back, lost to storms, killed in battle, captured, and sold into slavery. You imagine yourself among the rowers, the wind filling the sails, the sun rising over strange lands. You see the gleam of silver in the moonlight, hear the clash of swords, taste the salt on your lips. But when dawn comes, you wake to the cold, the smoke-filled house, the hunger in your belly. The dream fades, and the farm remains. Men who return broken, wives left widows, children growing up without fathers. The fields you tend, the animals you raise, the family you protect. These are your treasures, your battles, your victories. You find pride in the quiet work of survival, in the rhythms of planting and harvesting, in the small moments of warmth shared by the fire. You are building something that lasts, even if it is invisible to those who seek fame and fortune. Your legacy is in the soil, in the blood of your children, in the stories told in hushed tones around the hearth. It is not the life of song and saga, but it is yours. The raid is not a guarantee of fortune. It is a gamble with fate. For you, the stakes are too high. You cannot risk the loss of what little you have. The price of glory is steep, and it's paid in flesh and bone. You will watch from the shore, tending your land, protecting your family, and waiting for spring. Because this is your world. This is your fight. And though raiding may not be for you, there is courage in endurance, and there is honor in survival. You count your blessings that you have returned to your family, even if your pockets remain empty. The life of a Viking raider, at least as you've heard it in tales whispered by wandering skalds or brash youths at the market, is filled with risk and reward in equal measure. Its sword singing through the air, the clatter of steel on shield, the flash of gold and jewels. A share of silver to pay for your place on the ship, your weapons, your armor. You need a trusted man to tend your farm, watch over your wife and children, protect the crops and animals while you're gone. But you have neither. Every coin you earn goes to the Jarl. Every hour you work is owed to the land. There is no spare wealth, no trusted hand to take your place. Your family cannot survive without you, and the farm cannot survive without tending. It's the taste of victory and the thrill of the unknown. You imagine the salt spray on your face, the wind whipping through your hair, the roar of battle cries. But your feet are rooted in the frozen earth of your farmstead. The thrill of the raid is distant, almost a dream you dare not chase. But it's also long months away from home, harsh seas that threaten to swallow you whole, and the knowledge that your fields and family will suffer in your absence. To join a raid, you need coin, more than you can spare. So you remain on the shore, watching the ships sail away beneath storm-darkened skies. The months that follow are hard. Your neighbors who left on the last raid return with sacks full of silver, stolen goods, and tales of bloodshed. You work harder now than ever. Every seed planted, every animal fed, every fence repaired is done with the knowledge that the long months of winter are still to come. You hear the stories of warriors who become heroes, but you also hear the whispers of those who lose everything. Your life is tied to the earth beneath your feet. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you dream of the sea. You tell yourself that this is survival, that the slow, steady life of a farmer is no less honorable than the reckless glory of a raider. The ships will return again and again. Some men will join the next raid, their eyes bright with hope and fear. In this harsh and unforgiving land, the village feels less like a community and more like a fragile truce held together by necessity and fear. You sit by the fire one evening, sharing a mug of watered-down mead with the man next door, exchanging stories of weather and harvest. Everyone is watching everyone else, eyes flicking to the barn, hands checking the latch on the door, ears straining for the faintest sound in the night. You lie on your straw mat, ears alert to every creak, and whisper in the dark. The wind rattles the shutters, and every sound seems amplified, setting your heart pounding. You clutch a crude knife or a heavy stick, ready for whatever might come. A scarcity of resources turns neighbors against each other in subtle and overt ways. You hear whispers of plots and schemes, alliances made in shadows, betrayals that go unspoken but understood. The thought of waking to find your few possessions gone, your animals stolen, or worse, chills you more than the cold ever could. Your spouse worries aloud about the safety of the animals. Your children are cautioned to keep their eyes open, to lock doors tightly. You teach them to be wary, to expect nothing and trust no one easily. Childhood innocence fades fast in this world, replaced by a hardened awareness born of necessity. You learn to forgive quickly, to watch closely, to hold your loved ones close. Because in a land where every neighbor could be a thief, your greatest weapon is vigilance, and your greatest hope is the fleeting promise of trust. The same neighbor who laughs with you by day might be your adversary by night, driven by desperation or old grudges. But these moments are fragile, overshadowed by the ever-present threat that tomorrow might bring loss. Eyes flicker to those who arrive late, or those who speak too loudly. Conversations stop abruptly when certain names are mentioned. Even the children's games carry a sharp edge, mirroring the rivalries and grudges of their elders. You and your neighbors endure because you must. Each day brings new challenges, harsh weather, poor harvests, disease, but also new chances to rebuild trust, to forge alliances, to find moments of peace. The village is not just a place of fear. It is home, imperfect and fragile, but still yours. You cherish these brief reprieves, knowing they may be all that stands between you and isolation. Secrets are currency here, as valuable as the grain you store or the animals you raise. To reveal too much is to invite danger. To withhold too much is to foster distrust. You walk a delicate line, balancing openness with caution, friendship with wariness. The line between friend and foe blurs in a village where survival outweighs loyalty. His laugh is warm, his smile easy. But as night deepens and the flames gutter low, you wonder if that same man might be the one to slip silently through the shadows, stealing a goat or swiping a sack of grain while you sleep. Trust here is as scarce as sunlight in winter, and just as fleeting. You learn quickly that peace is temporary, a fragile illusion stretched taut over a world of scarcity and suspicion. Sleep comes in fits and starts. The thefts come quietly, but often. A missing hen here, a pilfered sack of oats there. Sometimes you catch a shadow fleeing through the night, or footprints where none should be. Is the man who offers to help with your fence truly a friend, or is he watching, waiting for an opportunity? Are the children playing at your doorstep innocent, or are they scouts for a rival family? This constant vigilance wears on you, making every moment tense, every encounter a test of trust. The village elders speak of justice, but law is thin in these parts. Punishments are swift and harsh, but also inconsistent, handed out by whoever holds power at the moment. Fear of reprisal keeps many thieves in line, but the threat also breeds grudges and cycles of vengeance. You find yourself questioning every interaction, every smile. The communal well, once a place of gathering and gossip, now feels more like a battleground for suspicion. Arguments flare over water rights and access. Even your own family is not immune to the strain. There are moments of kindness, fleeting and precious. Shared meals when the harvest is good, hands joined in building a new fence or repairing a roof after the storms. The village gatherings, meant for celebration or ceremony, are often tinged with underlying tension. You learn to keep your own counsel, to speak sparingly and watch closely. Despite the constant threat, there is a stubborn determination in the village. You realize that in this world, survival depends not just on strength or skill, but on understanding the complicated dance of suspicion and loyalty that binds you all. You do not pray for salvation or heavenly grace, for such luxuries seem far beyond the reach of your harsh, cold world. Instead, your prayers are whispered under your breath, simple and urgent pleas carried on the biting wind. You know the blessing of the gods is not guaranteed, It is a fragile, fleeting thing that must be earned and honored with sacrifice and respect. You gather what little you can spare. A portion of grain, the first milk from your goat, a carefully carved wooden figurine, and leave it at the edge of the forest or atop a moss-covered stone. It is as vital as mending a fence, as planting seeds, as tending livestock. It is a constant negotiation with forces larger than yourself, a dance on the edge of fear and hope. You know that to neglect the gods is to invite disaster. Poor harvests, failed births, plagues, and storms that can wipe out everything you hold dear. To honor them is to affirm your place in the world, a fragile balance between man, nature, and the divine. It is a quiet defiance, a refusal to surrender to despair. You are not just living in the shadow of the gods. You are standing alongside them in a battle for survival. These acts feel like bargaining, a desperate attempt to secure favor in a world that offers little mercy. Gatherings often begin with prayers and offerings, the community united in their shared dependence on the gods' favor. Fear that the gods might be angered, that the sacred rites might be forgotten or performed poorly. To question the gods is to invite disaster. So you continue the rituals, the offerings, the whispered words, because even if the gods are silent, your faith keeps the flickering flame of hope alive. You hear whispers of those who have fallen out of favor, whose crops have withered or livestock have died mysteriously. Superstition runs deep, and blame is often cast on those deemed careless or disrespectful. The weight of maintaining favor is heavy, and you carry it with every breath. The skalds recount tales of heroes and gods, stories that reinforce the fragile hope that even in darkness there is light. Children learn the names and attributes of the gods before they can fully understand their significance, growing up steeped in a faith born from necessity rather than doctrine. You call to Thor, hoping his mighty hammer will stay its wrath, that the thunder will not shatter your fragile home or drown your crops in relentless storms. The old gods are woven into the fabric of your life, not as distant deities, but as ever-present forces whose moods you must navigate with care. You do not expect miracles, only a reprieve from the relentless hardships. When sickness falls upon your children, your prayers become more frantic, more frequent, as you beseech the gods not to forget your name, not to turn their backs on your family. You know that without their grace, your loved ones could be lost to the cold, to fever, to the silent thief of death that prowls the village. Each time the skies darken and lightning rends the horizon, your heart hammers in your chest, fearing the destruction it could bring to your already precarious existence. To Freyr, you offer silent thanks when the soil yields a small harvest, a miracle in a land so often unforgiving. Your faith is not born of certainty, but of necessity. The rituals are simple but sacred. You light a small fire in the hearth, its flickering flames a beacon to the unseen spirits. You speak words passed down through generations, in a language thick with history and hope. Sometimes you leave offerings of mead or bread, hoping that these small gifts will placate the gods and secure their goodwill. You watch the smoke rise, imagining it carrying your pleas to distant realms, praying that the gods hear you amid the vastness. Worship here is not a solemn act of worship alone. It is survival work. The village itself is shaped by these beliefs. Yet beneath this shared reverence, there is also fear. You sometimes wonder if the gods truly hear your prayers, or if they are distant echoes, ancient voices lost to time. But you cannot afford doubt. In this way, worship becomes more than religion. It becomes a shield against the chaos of the world, a thread connecting you to your ancestors and your descendants. Disease moves through your village, like smoke through a dry forest, silent, invisible, but deadly. One cough in the longhouse, a fever in a child, and suddenly it feels as if the sickness has taken on a life of its own, spreading relentlessly from body to body. The smoke from the central hearth mingles with the stench of sweat and sickness, making the air heavy and hard to breathe. But even these small comforts are hard to come by. Water is scarce and often dirty, turning what should be healing into a source of new illness. You try to soothe them, singing old lullabies that now feel hollow, hoping your voice can chase away the shadows that cloud their eyes. You tend to the sick, fetch water, prepare what meager food you can, and comfort the grieving. Your hands are raw from washing, your body exhausted from sleepless nights spent watching and waiting. You carry the weight of lives in your palms, powerless but determined to do all you can. Every day is a battle, not with sword or shield, but with hope and endurance. You carry their stories forward, a living testament to the strength it takes to endure sickness and loss in a world without medicine. It is quieter than the clash of swords, less visible than the scars on your skin, but no less powerful. It is the courage to face each day with resolve, to care for the sick with compassion, and to hope for a dawn when sickness no longer steals so many lives. This is your fight, your burden, and your legacy in a world where sickness spreads like smoke. You remind yourself that survival is not just about living, but about remembering, about holding on to the threads that connect past, present, and future. But the sickness is relentless, and sometimes it takes the youngest first, snatching away the future before it has a chance to begin. The cemetery grows silently, a stark reminder of the toll this invisible enemy exacts. You find yourself counting the missing faces at gatherings, noticing the empty places around the fire. Each loss chips away at the village's spirit, leaving cracks in the fragile community. You watch as one after another falls ill, your neighbors, your friends, even your kin. Some succumb quickly, their bodies overwhelmed before the dawn. Families hold tighter, neighbors share what little they have, and stories of survival spread like fragile light. It shapes your days and nights, influences your decisions, and forces you to confront the fragility of life. You adapt, finding ways to protect those you love, to shield the healthy, and to honor the dead. Your prayers to the gods grow more urgent, your rituals more frequent, seeking protection and healing that often feels just out of reach. You witness acts of courage, a woman nursing her ailing husband, a child bringing water to a neighbor's door, a group working together to care for the sick. These moments remind you that even in the face of overwhelming sickness, humanity endures. Others linger, trapped between life and death, eyes glazed and voices weak. You and your family huddle close, but there is no escaping the invisible threat. The sick lie listless, their skin pale and clammy, their breaths shallow and ragged. You cradle a child's burning head, feeling the faint flutter of a failing heartbeat, while outside the cold gnaws relentlessly at the world. You watch helplessly as the weak grow weaker, the strong stumble, and the air thickens with despair. There is no medicine here, no healer with remedies or herbs strong enough to fight the invisible enemy. All you have is wet cloth to cool burning skin, whispered prayers to the gods, and a hope that luck will be on your side. The longhouse, once a place of warmth and shelter, becomes a tomb for some. There is no cure, only endurance. You fashion makeshift bandages, using scraps of cloth to wrap wounds or staunch bleeding. The fear in the village is palpable. You hear hushed conversations about the bad air and the wrath of angry gods. Superstition and dread mix as families isolate themselves, cutting ties with the sick in desperate attempts to stem the tide. But sickness respects no boundaries. It crosses thresholds and walls, slipping past guards and prayers alike. Even the strongest warriors fall to its grasp, their proud faces marked by pain and helplessness. Children are especially vulnerable. You see them lie motionless, small chests rising and falling with labored breaths, faces streaked with sweat and tears. The burden of care falls heavily on you and those left standing. Grief becomes a constant companion. You bury the dead in shallow graves outside the village, marking them with stones or simple wooden crosses. Yet, even in this darkness, you see glimmers of resilience. You learn to live with the sickness as part of your world, an ever-present threat lurking in the shadows. The memories of those lost haunt you, their faces, their voices, the touch of a hand no longer there. But these memories also fuel your determination. In this relentless battle against disease, you find a new kind of courage. You wake each morning with aches that no amount of sleep or rest can ease. Your hands, once strong and sure, tremble now with the relentless toll of years spent bending over unforgiving soil. By the time you reach 30, the years have already worn away the strength in your fingers, the bones aching and stiff like old timber. The cruel march of arthritis has taken hold, twisting joints that once grasped tools with precision into gnarled reminders of your toil. You hide your pain beneath a grimace and grit your teeth as you rise to face the day's labor again, knowing that the land will not tend itself. Instead, they will place a tool in your hand, a sickle, worn and rusted, its blade dulled by years of cutting stalks and weeds. This is your legacy, a life defined by the endless cycle of planting and harvesting, by the slow, steady shaping of the land with calloused hands. Your teeth, too, betray you. Hard bread, coarse grains, and the rough edges of a meager diet have worn them down prematurely. It speaks of mornings spent in mist and cold, of afternoons under relentless sun, of nights spent dreaming of rest that never truly comes. It is a reminder that your fight was not against men or monsters, but against the unforgiving earth and the passing of time. You have lived as the land demands, with all its hardships and fleeting moments of grace. And in that life, you have found a kind of honor that outlasts the fleeting glories of battle or fame, an honor rooted in survival, sacrifice, and the quiet dignity of a life well lived. The tool in your hand at burial is a testament to a life lived with quiet dignity, a life that shaped the world in ways unseen but deeply felt. Cavities and infections are common, but the only relief comes in the form of teeth lost or pulled without anesthetic, leaving gaps that make every bite a painful chore. In this way, you remain connected to the earth long after your breath has faded, your broken hands resting forever in the soil that both nourished and challenged you. The fields will grow anew each season, fed by the sacrifices of those who came before, their lives etched into the very ground. It curves forward, a spine shaped like a question mark, bent under the burden of relentless labor. The hardships you endured shaped their lives, their struggles, and their hopes. The broken hands that once held a sickle are now part of a lineage of resilience, a quiet legacy of survival in a world that demands everything and gives little in return. You are marked not by glory or strength, but by endurance and sacrifice. It is a testament to the endurance of the human spirit, to the unspoken courage of those who work the land day after day, season after season. The sickle in your hand at burial is a symbol of that courage, a silent salute to a life of unyielding effort and unwavering strength. You watch younger men and women with envy and quiet resignation, knowing that your days of heavy work are numbered, even as the demands only grow. The seasons do not wait for aching joints or tired bones. The land must be worked, the animals tended, the stores prepared for the harsh winters ahead. Every movement sends a sharp pang through your vertebrae, and yet you push on, for to rest too long is to let the crops fail. The animals starve, the family suffer. There is no choice but to endure, no promise that relief will come with age. Instead, the land exacts its toll, body breaking down long before the spirit gives out. You smile less often now, wary of the judgment in others' eyes or the shame of your appearance. The few remaining teeth are precious tools, clutched tightly to prevent further decay, but you know the inevitable fate that awaits. Your back carries the weight of years spent stooping, digging, planting, and harvesting. In the village, your body tells a story one of survival, etched in scars, calluses, and worn muscles. When your time comes, the village will bury you with simple rites, No songs sung in your honor, no weapons laid beside you to mark you a warrior. The sickle is not a symbol of battle or conquest, but of survival and hard work. Your bones will return to the soil you once tended, becoming part of the land that sustained you and your family. Though your story may go untold, it is carried forward in the sweat of your descendants, in the strength of those who continue the work. You may not be remembered as a hero in songs or sagas, but your life is no less significant. In the end, your body may be broken, your teeth gone, your spine curved, but your spirit remains unbowed. You wake each day to the sound of your children's weary breaths, not the laughter and play you once hoped for. Their faces, once full of the bright promise of youth, are now etched with fatigue and hardship. The innocence of childhood is stripped away by relentless work and the cruel demands of survival. A fever, swift and unforgiving, can claim a child within days, leaving parents clutching emptiness where a life once thrived. Harsh winters, with their biting cold and scarce food, claim many as well. You carry memories that haunt your waking hours, tiny hands that once grasped yours, eyes that looked up in trust, laughter that now echoes only in the past. You fight the urge to despair, to give in to the overwhelming sorrow that threatens to drown you. But you know that you must remain strong, for those children who still survive depend on your strength, on your hope. You watch neighbors bury their young, their faces drawn tight with grief, their hands shaking as they lower small bodies into the earth. The empty chair at the table, the unused bed in the corner, the silence in the place where laughter once rang loud. These absences weigh heavily on every heart. Together, you form a community forged in grief and resilience, bound by shared loss and the determination to carry on. Children will be born into hardship, will grow quickly, and will face the same brutal challenges that shaped your life. You vow to protect them as best you can, to teach them the skills they need to survive, and to nurture the strength they will need to face a world that demands everything. You remind yourself that despite the losses, despite the pain, life endures, and with it, the hope for a better tomorrow. The land and the seasons are indifferent to human suffering, and the struggles of survival remain as relentless as ever. But you also know that each generation carries the potential for change, for small improvements born of experience and endurance. You support each other in small ways, sharing food, offering comfort, watching over one another's families. They learn early that survival means hard work and quiet suffering. You try to protect them from the worst, to shield their fragile spirits from the cruelty of the world. But there are limits to what you can do. The land is unforgiving, the seasons relentless, and the hardships unending. Family members withdraw into themselves, mourning in quiet and sometimes bitter ways. The shared pain can either bind you closer or drive wedges between those who are hurting. You ask them to watch over your children, to spare them from the sickness and hunger that claim so many. Your faith is tested daily, stretched thin by loss and fear, but it remains a vital part of your survival. It is in these prayers that you find a flicker of hope, a reason to rise each morning despite the weight on your heart. You cling to the bonds you have, knowing that together you might find the strength to endure. Sometimes it is a simple cut, an infected scrape, or wound that spirals into sickness, because medicine is a stranger here, and healing is a hope rather than a certainty. They do not play in fields or chase after animals. Instead, they shoulder burdens far too heavy for their small frames. A child's small smile, a fleeting moment of joy in a shared story or song, a hand held tightly in yours. These are the threads that hold you together. They remind you that even in the darkest times, life persists. The future is uncertain and often bleak, but it is still a future worth fighting for. From dawn to dusk, their tiny hands tend to chores feeding livestock, gathering firewood, carrying water tasks that steal away their youth and rob them of dreams. You see it in their eyes, the quiet resignation of those who know the world offers little kindness. They do not dream of grand adventures or far-off lands. Instead, they dream simply of tomorrow, of finding enough food to fill their bellies, of warmth against the biting cold, of the rare moment when pain or hunger does not grip their small bodies. Survival is all they know, and every day is a battle fought without weapons, without glory, but with a stubborn will to live. The village is filled with the sorrow of children who never grow old. You have dug graves with your own hands, more times than you can count. Each burial feels like a knife twisting in your heart, a final betrayal by a world that demands so much and gives so little. Your hands, already raw and trembling from hunger and hard labor, dig into frozen or rocky soil to make a resting place for your lost child. You cover the grave with dirt and stones, marking the spot with a crude wooden cross or a pile of rocks, a silent monument to a life cut painfully short. Grief becomes a heavy cloak you wear daily. It settles deep into your bones, making your steps slower, your breath heavier. The loss of a child reshapes the fabric of the family. You watch as your surviving children grow up too fast, forced to abandon childhood for the harsh realities of life. Despite the pain, you find moments of tenderness and hope. You pray to the gods for mercy, for protection, for the strength to keep going. The village around you shares in this collective sorrow. You see the same pain reflected in the eyes of neighbors who have lost children, who have faced the same harsh realities. As you look to the horizon, you understand that the cycle will continue. In the quiet moments, when grief is most raw, you hold your children close and whisper promises you hope to keep. You hear the songs. The stories told around roaring fires speak of mighty warriors men who wield swords with unmatched skill, who charge into battle with fearless hearts, and who earn their place in Odin's great hall, Valhalla. These tales sparkle with glory and honor, with golden cups raised in victory, and the clashing of steel that echoes through eternity. The skalds sing of heroes whose names will never be forgotten, whose bravery fills the pages of saga after saga. And yet, these songs are not for you. You are not the warrior in the stories. Each seed you plant, each animal you tend, is a quiet act of defiance against a harsh world. There is an unspoken bond between those who work the land, who face hardship together without the promise of glory. You trade stories of harsh winters, poor harvests, and moments of unexpected kindness. These shared experiences become your own kind of saga, written not in grand verse, but in the rhythms of daily life. You are part of a community that understands the true meaning of strength, the strength to endure, to nurture, and to hope. You are not the hero of the saga, but you are a hero nonetheless. Your honor is real, your struggles meaningful, and your spirit unbroken. The warrior's glory may not be yours, but your legacy is eternal, etched in the very soil you have tended and the lives you have sustained. It is your way of fighting, not with sword or axe, but with endurance, care, and unyielding strength. What if you had been born into a warrior's family? Would you have found glory on the battlefield, your name sung by skalds for generations? But then you remember the pride you take in your work, the quiet satisfaction of providing for those you love. You are not lesser for your place in the world. You are essential. Your life, though humble, is a foundation upon which the future is built. The earth is your battleground, the seasons your foes, and your victories are measured in harvests and the survival of your family. It holds the stories of countless men and women whose lives are woven into the fabric of your community. Their sacrifices, like yours, go unrecorded but are felt in every breath, every meal, every moment of peace that follows a hard day's work. You carry their legacy forward, a living testament to the enduring spirit of those who toil without fame or fortune. Though history may overlook your contributions, you know their importance. The world remembers warriors and kings, but it is the countless unnamed farmers, mothers, laborers who sustain it. Your glory is not sung in halls or carved in stone, but it lives in the lives you touch, in the strength you pass to your children, and in the land you nurture. This is a different kind of immortality, quieter but no less profound. Without you, the world would be a colder, emptier place. You are the farmer, the laborer, the one who tills the land, raises the animals, and faces daily hardships far removed from the glory of battle. Your life is quieter, harder in ways that never make it into the legends. There are no tales sung of the man who wakes before dawn to tend to sick livestock, who shivers through long winters in a damp hut, or who walks wearily through muddy fields while others dream of conquest. Your honor is not marked by shield or spear, but by the calloused hands that never rest, by the resilience that keeps you standing when the world seems determined to break you. This is a different kind of courage, one, not celebrated by bards, but no less vital to the survival of your people. You know the sacrifices you make go unnoticed by history. While others seek fame on the battlefield, you labor in obscurity, your struggles invisible to those who only value swords and shields. Your wounds are silent aches in your back, sores on your hands, and a heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. There is no fanfare for the farmer who endures frost and famine, no parades for the mother who nurses sick children through long nights. Your victories are quiet, your losses unspoken. The gods themselves seem to reserve their favor for warriors. You hear tales of those chosen by Odin, of brave souls carried to Valhalla's halls to feast forever. But you do not count among them. Your place is not on the battlefield, but in the fields. Your legacy not one of heroics, but of survival. It is a hard truth to accept that the world you live in honors some lives while forgetting others. Yet you carry on, knowing that without you, the warriors would have no food to sustain them, no homes to return to, no future beyond the next battle. Your honor is buried in silence, but it is no less real. In the village, you find camaraderie with others who share your fate. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder what your life might have been if fate had dealt a different hand. The silence that surrounds your honor is not emptiness, but depth. As you look to the horizon, you understand that your story is part of something larger. In the end, you find peace not in the promise of legend, but in the truth of your own life. You live not by years marked on a calendar, but by the endless cycle of seasons that dictate every breath you take, every step you make, and every hope you hold. Spring arrives slowly, bringing the first warmth after the long, cruel winter. It is a time of relief, but only briefly. The thaw awakens the land beneath the snow and ice, but it also awakens the work you must do to prepare for the months ahead. You rise before dawn, your muscles stiff from months of cold and inactivity, and you step outside into the fresh, damp air, your breath misting in the chill morning. The ground is soft but uneven, still heavy with frozen patches and stubborn rocks. The cold bites through even the thickest clothes, and the wind howls like a living thing, rattling your doors and chilling your bones. Food is scarce. The root cellar's stores shrink day by day. These moments sustain you, remind you that life persists even in the harshest conditions. You learn to find joy in the simple things, to celebrate the victories, no matter how small. You are not a hero sung by bards or etched in stone. Your name may never echo in great halls, but it lives in the soil you've tilled, in the lives you've sustained, and in the generations that follow. Your story is quieter woven through mud, frost, sweat, and survival. You endure. You survive. And in that, you find a quiet kind of glory all your own. Yet it is no less important. You are the backbone of a world where every harvest is a victory and every winter a trial. Though the glory of warriors and kings may shine bright, it is your resilience, your strength, and your unyielding spirit that keep the world turning. You and your family huddle around the fire, its warmth fleeting and fragile. Your fingers are numb, your breath visible in the icy air, and your body aches from the cold and hunger. The dark days stretch endlessly. each one a test of your will to survive. You count the days until spring returns, but sometimes it feels like winter will never end. Spring is a season of planning and planting. You carry seeds in your worn hands, each one precious and heavy with promise. The passage of time is measured not in years, but in the turning of the earth and the changing of the skies. Each season demands something different from you: hope, strength, vigilance, endurance. There is no pause, no rest, only the constant rhythm of life lived close to the land. You till the soil with tools patched and worn thin from years of use, and you curse the stones that break your plowshare or the roots that resist your efforts. The sun beats down like a harsh taskmaster, and the fields stretch out like a sea of green and gold, heavy with crops that must be tended, harvested, and stored. You know that one day the earth will take you back, returning your body to the soil you have worked so hard to nurture. But until then, you endure, you survive, and you live each season as it comes with all its pain, its beauty, and its unyielding truth. You work from dawn until dusk, sweat soaking your clothes, skin burned by the sun. There is little rest, no time for leisure or ease. Every day is a battle against weeds, pests, and the ever-present threat of drought. Your hands blister, your back aches, but the harvest must be secured. The fruits of your labor mean survival for your family through the dark months ahead. The work is exhausting, the hours long, and the weather fickle. A sudden frost can wipe out seedlings. A torrential rain can drown the roots. You do not dare to hope too much, but you hold on to the fragile optimism that this year might be better than the last. Summer follows, relentless and demanding. With summer's end comes fall, a season painted in colors of gold and rust, but also a season that brings fear. The harvest is your reward, but it is also a countdown to hardship. You watch the sky anxiously, hoping for dry days to bring in the grain before the first frost. Every delay, every storm threatens to ruin your stores. You feel the weight of each bushel collected, knowing that your life depends on what you can save. As the days shorten and the cold creeps closer, you prepare for winter's grip, the season that tests your endurance most of all. Winter is pain. You do not live for decades. You live from harvest to harvest, from storm to storm, each season a marker in the fragile thread of your existence. Through it all, you hold on to the small moments of grace, the first crocus pushing through thawing earth, the laughter of children playing in a rare sunny afternoon, the shared warmth of a meal eaten beside a flickering hearth. Your life is a story told in seasons, a testament to resilience in a world that demands everything and gives little in return. As the seasons turn and years slip by, your life remains bound to the land and its endless demands. In the silence of long nights and the struggle of harsh days, you carry a legacy that few will ever know, but many depend upon. So as you close your eyes tonight, remember this. Even in a life measured by seasons, your courage stands eternal.